Well, let's talk to Ryan Sabey, Deputy President at The Sun, of course. Ryan, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
I mean, it is quite surprising, isn't it, that Kemi Badenoch is not... I mean, it's not as if she's terrible. She's not dreadful, but she sort of doesn't seem to land that many punches on Starmer. He looks quite relaxed when he's answering her.
Yeah, I think speaking to senior Tories this week, I think there has been there was certainly some concern when she started out. They think that she's actually improved in recent weeks. And I have to say, I thought that Kemi Badenoch yesterday, it was one of her better performances at the dispatch box taking on Sir Keir Starmer. I thought she was very, very focused on her questions, talking about the economy, talking about the jobs tax, that national insurance rise, and particularly picking out a key subject, which is whether hospices and care centres would actually get that exemption from that national insurance rise. So I think she honed in on that, and also she got a non-committed answer from Sir Keir on whether income tax, the thresholds wouldn't be extended, which would mean a tax rise. So I actually think she did okay yesterday, but I take your point. In the main, there has been some grumblings around her performance, just not getting to the point, just not attacking Sir Keir when he's been very vulnerable, especially in that early part of his premiership.
Well, exactly right. And given that some people in his own party are actually now being more critical of him, perhaps than even you hear the Tories being. You know, we've got The Guardian this morning talking about the biggest, cutback in public services and public sort of spending since austerity under George Osborne and David Cameron. You'd think she might have gone on something like that.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think this week, next week, all we're going to be talking about from the weekend onwards is going to be this spring statement. Where is Rachel Reeves going to look to find those big savings to try and balance the books? Now, they've tried to start that this week with the £5 billion worth of welfare savings. But that really, let's be honest, is a bit of a drop in the ocean. So one thing that she'll be asking all her cabinet colleagues, the civil servants across Whitehall, is to try and find those savings. And as we hear, those Whitehall departments are going to try and have to find another 5%, 7% of cuts just to try and balance the books, because she's got those strict fiscal rules that she wants to stick to. And we're going to have to wait and see to find out how much room for manoeuvre, how much financial wriggle room has she got when she delivers that spring statement next week and she gets that independent forecast back.
Yeah, not much wiggle room, I think, would be the answer to that. Meanwhile, today, Keir Starmer's gone off to Scotland to go and visit HMS Vanguard, one of the UK's 10, I think, nuclear-armed submarines off the coast of Scotland. Is that Keir Starmer attempting to look Thatcher-like? Do you remember when she popped her head out of that tank and everyone thought, now that's a proper leader? I'm not quite sure he's got the same effect there.
Yeah, no, this is a sort of tease up a big moment for Sir Keir this afternoon when military chiefs are meeting in London to discuss the so-called the backstop or the security arrangements within Europe. So what Sir Keir is trying to do is try and send that signal to Vladimir Putin that Britain is a big player on the world stage, particularly when it comes to that nuclear deterrent. So I think that is all about signalling ahead of this big meeting this afternoon, where we're going to get the coalition of the willing. And I think the interesting thing on that is, let's see which countries, whether they're NATO countries, whether it's Australia, whether it's Canada, what they're actually going to offer the coalition of the willing. Because at the moment, we've not had any firm commitments. We've had lots of interest, but actually, what will they deliver when it comes to trying to maintain and keep peace in Europe?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to a retired general this morning from America, and he was saying, you know, it's not that clear what they're a coalition of the willing to do. What are they willing to do?
Well, this is the big question for Sir Keir Starmer. This is what he's got to try and do. Now, it seems like Britain and France are going to be playing that leading role and actually trying to have some troops within Ukraine. But on the other hand of that, you've got Vladimir Putin, who says there is no way I will accept a peace deal if you have those peacekeeping troops, if you have any other troops, NATO troops in Ukraine. So this is like Sir Keir Starmer, Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, Volodymyr Zelensky. They're all playing this game of three-dimensional chess, trying to get the pieces in the right parts and hoping that they can find some sort of deal. Now, I'm not sure Vladimir Putin is on the same page as what we are, but let's just let's just try and see where the negotiations across the board take us in the coming days and weeks.
Absolutely right. We're going to talk to Harry Cole, your colleague, coming up a bit later in the show, but let's talk about his story in The Sun this morning. The rush to net zero risks wiping 10% off economic growth by the end of the decade and triggering a financial crash. This is a government paper that's been leaked to The Sun. Quite damaging stuff, really, for the net zero brigade, isn't it?
Yeah, no, exactly. And we've heard so much about net zero. We've had Ed Miliband on his big crusade, all those things that he's trying to get, achieve 2030, that decarbonisation of the electricity grid that most people say that is absolutely bonkers. But Harry makes the point in that story that this is just going to effectively bankrupt us. We haven't quite realised the extent of how bad net zero is going to actually affect us all. And I think this just takes us, just shines a light on the big issue, not only for the politicians of the problems they've got to solve, but how it will actually affect households and hit them in the pocket.
Yeah, absolutely right. And just one other story that's in The Sun today I wanted to mention to you is Gareth Southgate, who was given the Dimbleby Lecture to deliver yesterday. And obviously the timing of it was interesting, given that the sentencing of that triple killer in Luton was also taking place as well. People are talking an awful lot about, young men in this country and what they might need and what sort of role models they should be looking up to. It's kind of one of those stories that sort of comes around every now and again. But Gareth Southgate being taken sort of seriously as a sort of a pundit, not just on football, but on life, is a bit of an unusual turn for him, isn't it?
Yeah, no, particularly. And I think what's really interesting, when Gareth Southgate left his role as England manager, he made a point that actually his next big job may not actually be in football management. It may not be in football. And I think one thing, just reading between the lines and seeing him giving this lecture over the last couple of days, you just wonder whether he sees himself as a social justice campaigner, someone who can tap into something, someone who's been through and seen these big role models and find out what actually role they can play when it comes to younger kids who are really, really struggling. When I watched the lecture last night, and the big problems of social media, not having any role models. There was a story in the paper over the weekend on the lack of teachers, male teachers in secondary schools and primary schools, and it just makes you wonder who they look up to.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Ryan, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Ryan Saby, Deputy Political Editor at The Sun there, talking about a couple of the big stories in the paper this morning, including that one on net zero, crashing the economy. Well, we could have told them that. In fact, we did tell them that. We've been saying it for a very long time.